From the studios of KENW on the campus of Eastern New Mexico University, it's You Should Know, featuring the people and events of Eastern New Mexico and West Texas.
Welcome to You Should Know. I'm your host, Evelyn Ledbetter, and I have the pleasure of having U.S. Congressman Steve Pearce with us today, and also a veteran of the Vietnam War. And we did a segment earlier for the first part of him having a book that he had wrote, I Had a Good Home, But I Left, and he's agreed to continue on with our topic. This is too good of a story to finish. So, Congressman Pearce, thank you for being
Thank
willing
you.
to stay a little longer and
Absolutely.
continue on. So, let's just pick right back up where we left. You were talking about there was a soldier, a veteran in the audience, and he was talking with you about, you don't even know.
This is when I was first elected to Congress. So
Right.
again, I'm in a town where I grew up, played high school baseball, was not a standout in anything. I was pretty mediocre. I tell people if it hadn't been for me, there wouldn't have been a top half of the class. So I was not up here. And here I am being elected to Congress, and everybody knew me as quiet and shy. And one guy came up and said something very key. He said, you didn't make any big mistakes. Some of us ended up doing things, and some of us ended up in jail, whatever. You didn't make mistakes, and that left you where there were no October surprises. He said, then another guy kind of crowded in about that point and said, don't make the same mistakes we made in Vietnam. And I had watched young men. At that point, we weren't even aware of the young women who were in Vietnam. There were about 11,000 of the several million people there. So it was kind of a small percent, but their stories were dramatic. I didn't even know those stories at that
Right.
point. So I say, well, war is tough, and get the help from the VA. And he screams, the VA can't help, and this, and don't make the same mistake. Just get somebody to listen to them. And so anyway, that stuck with me through. I mean, even today. I mean,
Right.
that was in 2002. That was, but through the entire time in Congress. So I had watched the military fight the Vietnam War, TDY, temporary duty,
Hmm.
and like I was stationed in the Philippines, but all of our planes were in Vietnam, and we would go in 15 days and come out. That way, the cost of our participation was tied to the base that we were stationed at, and not to Vietnam. Is the way they were manipulating the cost to the public and in the accounting for the war. And other groups had 179. The bomber guys, B-52 guys, would go in 179 days. If they went 180, then they wouldn't have to go back ever unless they volunteered. So the military would send them 179, bring them out, 30 days at home, back in for another 100. People were spending 11 months a year,
So just disposable people,
just
basically.
disposable people, but and wrecking families. And so I got there, and this was the Bush administration when I went in, and so I talked to them and said, please don't fight this Iraq war. I said, I'm supporting you 100%. Believe we need to take care of the threat, but don't fight at TDY. Oh no, we don't intend to. Well, kids in Iraq and Afghanistan, 7, 8, 9 deployments, the same thing we faced. In these deployments, they could be 3 months or 5 months. Usually, if it goes over 6, then it becomes a full. Then you can't do it temporary. You have to do a full change of address. And so they send them in and out, and again, families are wrecked. And so these things began to percolate back into my head. The closer I got, the the rules of engagement are always they're necessary. The rules of engagement are set by the non-military people, the political leaders, to say, okay, you can't do this, you can't do that. And they're for humanitarian conduct of war. War is bad, it's tough, there's a lot of death, blood,
Right.
and you want all sides to agree. Well, in Vietnam, the rules of engagement were very restrictive. And President Johnson at one point said, "Those boys in the plains can't strike an outhouse without my permission." And that was true. And so he and his Defense Secretary McNamara would sit every morning and I mean, there's no way to fight a war. You need,
Wars, you would think your goal plan would be to win. Get in and get it done and get out, and that
and when
wasn't.
we were there, then that was the deal, is that everybody said, well, the North only has one rule. You got to win. We've got 5 pages of rules just for flying around
We
Laos.
have politicians
We have
and not
politicians
military
who are
leaders.
handcuffing us and making it impossible to win the war. So that was early, and I mean, that was my C-130 time in the war, saw that more clearly. When I came home, I thought I was through the war, and so I was a year and a half in the war region, and got back home and assigned to the one SAC base, bombers and tankers. I was in tankers, and all of the planes were still overseas. And so I then started going back.
Back and
Now
forth.
I'm in Arkansas, going 3 months here, back for a month, 3 months. And so the war just was bogged down, and Nixon is trying to get us out of it. And so 72, the North Vietnamese are not negotiating at all. And he says, we're going to bring them to the table. So there was, in 1972, then the 11-day war took place in December, starting on the 18th, if I'm not corrected. So the 18th through the 29th, and they suspended on Christmas Day. But we put hundreds of B-52s. They were considered invincible, and they're supposed to go in and bomb Hanoi and Haiphong, which were the Hanoi, the capital, and Haiphong, both heavily defended. And so the planners out in the B-52 units had different ways to get there and whatever, and they sent them up to be approved. And this is all top secret, and nobody knows the war is about to start, and it's about to ramp up because Nixon wants to make them come to the negotiating table and end the war. So it's all set up, and the deputy chief of operations, the second highest guy in SAC, looks at the plans and say, that's not the way we do it. His name was General Cianis. We don't do it that way. One route in, one route out. And so based on his demand, we had 129 bombers the first night, December 18th, flying same altitude,
Same path.
same path, same airspeed, spacing here.
No variation. You're sitting ducks.
You're sitting ducks. And everybody in the military knew it, but the people in Washington didn't, and they didn't care.
Because it was convenient,
It was
or
convenient.
to do the flight plans.
So the first night, this invincible airplane, we lost 3. The first one to get shot down was from my base. I was still transitioning in from C-130s, coming back, had gone through training, and was still in training when this was going on. And the first crew was from our base. And I'm thinking, oh, wow, this is getting more personal right up here. Anyway, it was shot down over Hanoi. They lost 2 more that night. The next night, not so many. Then the third night, everything broke loose, and they shot down 6. Nixon is going crazy, saying, why are my invincible bombers being shot down? And so the 11-day war conducted, and I write a lot about this in the book. And
You basically, they had given them the game plan.
Yes,
You know,
they knew
here's our
everything we're
play.
doing, and our soldiers are paying the cost.
Right.
And so finally, and at that same time, one of the people I served in Congress with, Sam Johnson, was a colonel in the Air Force, got shot down and had been in the Hanoi Hilton for 7 years. They're being told by the captors that you guys have beat us and you're going to bomb us, and you've knocked out all of our capabilities. Now you're going to send in ground troops and we're finished. And so they started treating the prisoners better. Well, then Kissinger said, okay, they've agreed to talk, stop the bombing.
So everything is lost again.
And so in the peace agreement, the Nixon administration actually agreed to leave 150,000 soldiers in the South. So the agreement, we got nothing except the return of our POWs, or prisoners of war. We got those and nothing else. And there we did all of that. We had all of that sacrifice during the 11-day war and during the years since 1965 or whenever we started really ramping up. all of the loss for
So
nothing.
you've lived with this inside of you from the
Yes.
time you returned, and you're doing the flight
And I'm doing the flight. The closer I get, the more this stuff
is
is
just coming out.
exploding here, and I can't control it. And in
And
flight, you never want to get emotionally. You should always be airspeed, altitude, and attitude. What am I doing? Keep your mind in here for 8 hours flying into Thailand, nine
that's what
hours
you're
in this
thinking.
flight, and this stuff is all coming up, and it's like a videotape replay,
Just a
and
volcano
the
just
emotions,
exploding with that.
emotions are just tearing at me. And I still got to land the plane after. And at this point, I've been up for almost 3 days. I'm so exhausted. I can't hardly function, and I got to get focused and land the airplane. And so that's when I end up on the ground in Thailand. I'd lost the
Mhm.
clearances to go into Vietnam. I'm making the best I can, and this young Thai lady just
You
uh,
said the handler, right?
handler, yeah,
And
the best things were when you landed and you had pre-ordered someone to help you,
mhm,
call a handler. They would take your paperwork and go get it, and you could be filing your next flight plan, and then they would organize that, and they'd organize the fuel. Well, this handler is standing there. I land probably at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, and I see this little flashlight, this monstrous ramp that at one point had 50, 60, 70 B-52s. It's huge, huge. It's bigger probably than Canon by far. It's probably 3 times, 5 times the size of Canon. And so just to give you a perspective, and here's this one little flashlight over there, and I can't even see who it is. I'm trying to find my way in the dark. There are no ramp lights, nothing. And so finally see that and I make my way up. And the next day, and she saved the mission because at that point I was there and thinking, okay, I don't have anything left inside to talk about.
mhm.
I don't have anything left to honor anybody with. I'm really, really finished. Emotionally, spiritually, physically
Just depleted.
depleted. Everything's gone. And I'm not even sure that I'm even going to go. I carried these memorials to place at all the
Mhm.
bases, and I was not even sure that I've got the energy. And she sees this and says, Captain, we would be honored to accompany you to. So it's this message from outside to
Mhm.
come to place the memorial. And I just can't. She'd been so helpful and so right there, so professional. I could not disrespect that kind of nudge. So I go in, and then even inside, I'm empty, empty, empty.
Mhm.
And again, she had people were kind of moseying in and out, and she would let them know this is very serious stuff. And they would come in and they would stand at attention. I mean, they couldn't tell what was going on. Here I am, 69, 70 years old, beat down, wore out, just sitting there. And she would let them know with one look, be quiet. Finally, she says, we're ready. I don't, I'm not sure I would have even said anything if she had not been right there. And so I talk about her in the book because she saved the trip.
It was very poignant in what you said
Uh,
at that time, and I'm sure in reflection, you're so
oh,
again, that was probably God nudging her,
yes.
just give you that moment and be able to work through that.
Yeah, yeah, just and so I make the point that we might not be the ones flying around the world, but we might be the ones who give somebody a nudge.
Right.
I was looking at something on the other day, and everything's on the internet, and it's talking about this street preacher back in the 30s or 40s, and somewhere in Kentucky or somewhere back in North Carolina. And these two young men come in, and they're 14 and 15, and they see the place full, so they start to leave. And an usher runs and grabs them and say, "I can't let you leave. I'll find you a spot. I'll get you two seats together. Come on back." So he talked them back. So years later, everybody talks about the minister that's speaking, and Billy Graham, as a 14-year-old, is in the audience. And yeah, the speaker and the preacher was important, and Billy Graham's important, but none of it would have mattered if it weren't for the usher. So I always tell people, I don't know if you're going to be in the airplane. You don't know if you're going to be
Right.
in the airplane, but you can be the usher. You can be the handler in Thailand that saves this trip, because I really don't know if I could have continued. I just was, it had emptied everything out of me.
Just
And so there she was. And then from there, Thailand, I went to Bangladesh, then landed, and again, this reassuring young man waiting at 2 o'clock in the morning. I mean, again, I'm landing at 2 o'clock and I'm dead tired. And here's this friendly guy in Bangladesh when the State Department said, you don't want to go to Bangladesh.
right.
It was the only place I could get fuel. So I had to go to Bangladesh. And here's this one guy that is reassuring, and I take this selfie, and he's got his sunglasses on at 2 o'clock or whenever, his arm around me, and so I tell people I was so introverted and so shy growing up. This commandment we have to love our neighbor. I'm sorry, I don't love my neighbor. And I grew up, I mean, I don't. I mean, I just tell people that I grew up this introverted. And so all my life I've struggled with it. And on this trip, as people began to show me, I realized you don't have to emotionally love them. You just got to be kind,
Right.
show them, smile, put your arm around them, and take this selfie at 2 o'clock in the morning when they're whipped
Well, and you said there was people all along this trip
all along.
that was that bright spot and that smile and just being kind or gracious that
They
was
weren't
what
all
kept you
along the trip.
well,
And
no,
I
no,
make this
not
point.
no,
I
you
make
did
this
not.
point
But
that we're going to choose in life to be the ones who love our neighbor, who give the encouraging tap on the shoulder, pat on the back, or we're going to be the other side. And I ran into those people who tried to talk me out. This is dangerous, Captain. Well, how old are you? You should be out here. What is this? And trying to tear you down. If you read Nehemiah, you'll read when they were going back to rebuild the wall of Jerusalem, all the people who had gotten settled into their homes for the last,
you had a good home.
yeah, you had a good home. We moved right in, and they were trying to scare them out of it, and then they blustered them, and then we're going to get those things, but we have to choose which we're going to be in life. And so this lesson I'd struggled my whole life to learn really got implanted, and so I find myself at 6 o'clock in the morning at McDonald's. I'm much more congenial to the young lady who's just trying to get her mind in her work. And
Right,
I say, your smile today, and you can see them pick up.
right,
Your smile today has made my day start right. Thank you for being out here,
right. A
and people
kind word
want
is
just a
amazing what
kind
it
word of
does. A
recognition. And
smile.
so just another one of the lessons that I put in this book. It's probably going to be 1,000 pages, and the editor kept saying, "We're going to clip this out, clip that out," and so it's pretty. There are a lot of lessons in there that I learned.
Well, you actually had to pause the flight. Session went
Yes,
back. You had to get back. Congress was back
I
in
ran out
session.
of the 15 days.
But you
Fin-
were able to pause
Yeah,
and take a commercial flight home
yes,
and then finish the session and go back and finish.
yeah.
So
And Cynthia was distraught when the chief of staff said, "Okay, he's going to have to stop NAB so that the plane will be good there." A lot of places they don't want your plane sitting there for even overnight, and so Ibiza was near, and that's off the coast of Spain, part of Spain. So we left the airplane home. I flew home commercially, got in time, just in time to walk to the floor and start voting. Been gone for 2 weeks, emotionally burned out, and here I am back on the
back
house
to
floor,
work,
back to work.
back to the real job.
And so people say, "Well, your wife had to be." Well, actually, no. Washington does not recognize wives. I tell people that for 14 years, I had to make staff scheduler for one lunch a week.
Just to be able to spend
And
some time
so
with her.
here we come, and our life was lived in 4-day and 3-day increments. 4 days in Washington. Thursday night we fly back to New Mexico, and we work in New Mexico Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then hustle back for Monday and start votes Monday night or Tuesday, whenever it.
She was just as much in service as you were.
Yes, and so we thought about it, and if I bring her to Washington, I'm number one at the office at 7, come home at 7, so
Mhm.
she's got all day there. No support friends around her. She's got her friends in Hobbs, and so, and then on Thursday I leave, and
Right,
she's there for the 3-day
right.
weekend by herself. And so we said, okay, you shouldn't be here. But then even when I got home, Then we had a good home. We left. I got in about midnight. We flew home Thursday night, and I got there about midnight, 1 o'clock from flying into Lubbock, and then 2 hour drive. And so she's already asleep, and I sneak into bed. And then at 5 o'clock, I'm up and out the door for my 3 day congressional work weekend.
How many hours total was the flight time when you
185 flight
complete?
hours in the air,
185 and
15 days in the air,
26,000 miles?
26,000 miles.
So when you got to that point and you're back in your world, what do you think it was that when did it start that you were gonna write this book? Because you didn't do it immediately following.
No,
So
that was in a period of time where I ran for governor. And so
right.
now that I'm straight out of this into a 2 year run for governor, that
Mhm.
was unsuccessful, but it was eating up time. So after that was unsuccessful, then I'm thinking, okay, there's far more going on in this flight than going from A to B, A to B, A to B, 26,000 miles. And I said, I need to capture that. I need to get the backstories of all these things. I need for people to understand the stresses that the flight, but the stresses in DC placed on our
Mhm.
relationship. And so I talked very openly about that. And Cynthia departed on the flight, and it was the second time in her life that we didn't. A 1-1 vote would have defeated it. I said a 1-0 vote, I'm going to go, and she did not vote. She said, "I won't stop you,
That's a neutral.
but I don't want you to go. I don't." She said, "It's a bad idea. What would I do?" Because she said, "Neither one of us are
Right.
certain you can make it back. There's a lot of things out there." I always tell people aviation and gravity are looking to kill you every day, and you got to figure out how to stay
Mhm.
alive in the air. Same thing is true on the boats or
Sure.
in a car or whatever, trucking across the country. There's always circumstances waiting out there, and she was saying, "What am I gonna do?" And there's no answer to that,
Right.
and I just said, "I think I have to go." I said, "You and I have lived our life listening to these urges, and maybe they're coming from God, maybe they're not, maybe it's just something," but I said, "I think this is something I must do." As I got there and as the thing succeeded. Now, she's the one that tells about it. I very rarely, this is the most I've talked about the book or the flight. I mean, I'm just sitting here telling you.
Well, I'm honored. It drew me in. It spoke to me in many different ways, and I know that it's going to speak to a lot of people that are struggling and looking for something in their life and direction.
Yeah,
And when you have someone that you respect and can look up to, and if he can do that, maybe I can do a little bit of that.
yeah.
So the book is set to release on Veterans Day,
It is,
correct? So
and
November.
it's pre-order
Mhm.
right now on Barnes& and Noble,
Okay,
and, you can just go on, look up the title. If you go to my Facebook, and it's just another story, but so always in DC, staff set up everything.
sure. So you're having
And
to be personal with this.
yeah, but it took 8 months for me to get my, because I knew none of the passwords, knew none of the usernames, and Facebook is very difficult.
It is
And Meta assigned me a person to work with me, and we worked together 6 or 8 months with her helping from inside. She
to
said,
get this going.
yeah, to get back into my Facebook. So I just started posting. So if you go to my Facebook account, there's 2 or 3 of them, and so you gotta find the one where I'm in this kinda red, white, that looks pink checkered shirt, and I've got Shiprock
Uh-huh.
behind me, then it's
Is
not that,
it's not the picture on the back?
no,
Okay,
and so and you'll see there are 24,000 friends on that page
right.
from when I was in Congress. So, just regained control of that about a month ago and started posting, and so down in about 3 or 4 posts back, I, uh I have the link to the Barnes& and Noble. If you can find it, just "You had a good home, but you left." Just think of your own stories out there,
Sure.
and if you're ever gonna do anything, then you can't stay in the comfort zone. And so that's how I can remember the title, remember the cadence call, if that's it. But,
Well, it's a wonderful read. I would highly recommend. It speaks to.
appreciate
I
it.
think it'll speak to everybody in a different way
I
of
think
what it
so.
brings to the front. And so you've given the information of where to find that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to guess you said you're enjoying your spouse and doing a few
Yeah,
things
I
with her
just
right
posted on my Facebook page, and
now.
then again, so we just passed our 44th anniversary on the 17th, and so the 18th we were out at dinner, and I have not. We have been busy our whole life, married, and again, that's a piece of the title. Cynthia says, every time we get comfortable, you move us into something different. And I said, well, you come along with me. I said, if you wouldn't come along, maybe I'd come anyways. So we have this back and forth.
Oh,
And so I have not expressed enough. So I'm thinking leading up to the anniversary. And so I began to gather pictures through our full 20 years. And I mean, we're both in her. I'm 78 now. She's 76. And so I get all these pictures from when we're young and smiling and through the years. And so I actually end up with 20 pages of these pictures, and I make comment. So I'm going to show her on the computer, but that's kind of, so we're headed to dinner, and I stop at a print store and have it printed, tuck it in Simon jacket. And anyway, so here I am with this thing walking in, and
Congressman, we're
we
out
go,
of time. I'm sorry.
okay,
I'm sorry.
but you can see that post.
Oh,
Take a look at the
take a
post.
look. That's a teaser
Yeah.
to do that.
All
So
right.
it's an honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it.
And for all of you watching today, thank you. And we'll see you back next time. Cheers.